Welcome to the Cabin Culture Podcast, where we spend a little more time diving deeper into all the fun parts of cabin culture. We like to think of this as both a material and imagined expression of how cabin lovers, dwellers, builders, and designers wish to live a more simple and authentic life. First of all, I want to apologize for the audio recording on this opening. I am at the beach and forgot to bring my podcast mic with me, so this is me on a cell phone in a closet doing the best that I can. On today's episode, recorded with good mics, we have two very special guests, Lauren and Cam, who are joining us from Charlotte, North Carolina. This episode is long overdue because Lauren and Cam are some of my favorite real-life friends from the cabin world. We initially connected on Instagram as we both own cabins in the Blue Ridge Mountains right outside of Boone, but our friendship quickly moved off the platform, and Lauren went on to do interior design work for our third camp up in Maine. Cam and Lauren are living the dream a lot of us share, designing, building, and renovating cabins in beautiful locations. Their journey began with their first cabin, the Hillside House in Boone, and has since expanded to include another project and even a van build. In this episode, we'll explore their journey from the beginning. We'll dive into the vision behind their projects, the challenges and joys of creating these unique spaces, and their experiences as cabin enthusiasts and hosts. We'll also discuss the importance of community, their love for the Blue Ridge Mountains, and the exciting adventures of their van build. Let's do it. This is so long overdue. I feel like you are, to give context to people listening, like you are probably some of my favorite real life friends from the cabin world. Although it did start on Instagram. Yeah. But it moved off of Instagram, I feel like pretty early on.
Yeah. I think we met, from, being in the same area with Cozy Cabin Boone. And then
it's a mouthful.
Yeah. And then, watching the build in Maine and just going through I think we connected, it was like during COVID when all that stuff. So, and then it was fun.
And it was after your build was finished. So I actually didn't have the pleasure of following along with your build during, though. Since your first cabin, which is the Hillside House, you also then tackled another project after that and then a van. So I kind of want to talk about all of those today. Yeah. But since I wasn't there for the Hillside House, can you take me back to the very beginning? Because that was your first cabin in Boone, one of my favorite places in the world. When did that cabin start for the two of you?
Yeah, so I guess 2019. Well, early 20, I guess we closed in February of 2019, right? And so I always wanted a place in the mountains, but I knew it was going to have to be a fixer-upper, and I got in touch with a real estate agent up there, and we looked at a few places, and I actually looked, we didn't look specifically at my parents' condo, but we looked at a condo, like a neighboring, like in their same building, and we didn't even know about Seven Devils previously. I mean, we've been to the area and stuff, but
that's a part of Boone for anyone who doesn't know. Seven Devils is like a little neighborhood.
Watauga. Yeah, it's in Watauga County. Boone's like 20 minutes, I guess. And so we closed in February, I think. And
how many fixer-uppers did you look at? Because yours was quite the project. You gutted and started over.
It was the second or third house. It was pretty quick. And
the real estate agent almost didn't even want to show it to us because it was looking back, we just actually went and looked through all our photos recently because we did a big deck strip and cleanup over Memorial Day weekend, and we were like, let's look back at what it was like when we started. And it's so funny to look back at what that house was and how we just immediately fell in love with it, and it was just not anything. So it was just being able to see that potential.
It has a great view, as you probably see in photos and stuff. So it's you can't create that, right? So it's if you have something that you can sort of build around that. And, there was a lot of stuff to check. We had to, make sure there were no big structural issues, that kind of thing. But once we kind of figured all that out, we knew, mostly my dad and myself, right, knew that it was in our wheelhouse in terms of, our skill sets. So
because you did all of it yourself, which is so unusual, I feel like, that you literally did it yourself.
We contracted the tile work in the bathroom simply because it would have taken so much more time.
Yeah.
So we did the tile, the floor tile and the shower tile, and that's it. And everything else we did ourselves, and it was 11 months.
Yeah, which guys, like, you need to see it first. I feel like you need to go to their Instagram and scroll back. It's at the Hillside House, because we're not just talking about like cosmetic improvements that you made to it. When you say you did everything and it was within your wheelhouse, like, it is, in my opinion, one of the most impressive before and afters I've seen.
Oh, wow.
Thank you.
Because when you see the before, you're just like, I think I have vision, but if I had seen that one, I probably would not have been able to envision what you have created with it.
I remember showing some people before we ever even got started on it, like when we closed. We were like, here's our cute cabin. We're going to fix it up. And some of the looks we got were like, oh my God, okay, we'll see what you can do with that.
If it wasn't for the view and just the backyard, it's really flat. It's kind of rare up there to have like a nice flat.
It really is.
Piece of yard, and it's, it's on a hill. And it's great. So
and Grandfather Mountain, for, again, folks not familiar with Boone, is like this epic mountain in the Blue Ridge Mountains that like has a great profile of it, and straight from your backyard. Like, I've seen it in real life. You can see, I mean, it is the best backyard I think I've ever seen at a cabin.
We're putting in a zip line next to the top.
Are you? No, you're not.
No.
That would be amazing though, Cam. That would be amazing.
Cool. Yeah.
That would be so cool. Okay, so, but I want to back up even a little bit further. So you're looking for cabins, you see this one, you have the vision. Lauren, you're an interior designer. Cam, you and your dad had the skills to do the work. How did you start? Because I think for folks who might not feel as brave as you to tackle a renovation project like this, can you kind of walk me through what the steps of that looked like? Like, so before you started, Lauren, did you do design work to present a vision before Cam started, or did you both like work at the same time? How did that work?
Well, that's a good question. So I think we had a vision for it. And first of all, it was small enough that we felt like we could handle it without being overwhelmed. I mean, we definitely had times where we felt overwhelmed, but so we would work up there on the weekends. So we'd head up after work, Friday night, work all weekend. And then during the week, I would do a lot of the planning of like the mood boards, working on the floor plans, sourcing like what tiles we're going to do. So it's kind of like we would do our labor on the weekends in the very beginning, and then kind of the design work at home during the week. So first off was like we had to remove the floor, so we had to pick a floor, and then we picked paint colors and things like that.
We needed somewhere to sleep, so we had to do like one bedroom immediately. And really the bedrooms were pretty early on because we had to have somewhere to sleep. So it's like we might as well
start there.
The design for the bedrooms were laid out relatively early, where the kitchen came, much later probably.
Yeah. I think for people who might want to do something similar and not know where to start is if it's a project that you're traveling to, at least get a room clean and at least painted with a bed in it. It can even just be a mattress. So you have somewhere to sleep. And then it kind of evolves as you work on it. Like some of our first ideas when we were working on it, we maybe changed from when it got closer to the end. And just finding inspiration and kind of working on it. I think it kind of comes together a little organically as you start to find pieces that you like or things that inspire you. But it was kind of constantly working on it. Also.
Yeah, because it's
11 months.
It's an interesting intersection of the interior design and the actual construction part, because some parts of interior design you can change after you're done and it's fine. And other parts, like where there's going to be walls or where you're taking down walls, which is part of the eventual interior design, you have to decide early on. So I feel like that juggle of like which comes first can be really intimidating for folks who've never done it before.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so.
And Cam, your parents or whose parents already had a place up there?
No, nobody.
Nobody. You were the first
They got
one.
theirs after we got ours. But we had looked at a condo in the building that they ended up getting.
Okay, so you were the first ones in your family to make that leap. But then over time, and we'll get to that in a little bit, but over time they saw what you had done and were like, maybe we could do this too.
We could do this again, right?
Yeah. How long did it take you to feel like you could do it again, though, after 11 months of every single weekend going up there and working on it?
So we took like a year. I mean, it was basically like a year off, I think.
Yeah.
Okay. Which was also enough time for you to prove that not only can we renovate a place, but also we can rent it in a way that will pay off the, monthly expenses.
I mean, it's like, we have the benefit of hindsight now, and you guys are probably in the same boat, but it's scary at first when you're just throwing all this money and you're like, okay, I'm going to rent this place one day, but I don't know if people are going to rent it. It's like, sounds funny now, but you don't know that. And you're like, hopefully this works out. It feels, it felt a bit reckless at times.
Yep.
Just like spending. But, Memorial Day sales at Lowe's and things like that, you can really sort of take advantage of.
Oh my gosh, Black Friday, I was such an idiot with Boone. You went there. I don't know if I told you this, but I bought like all of our furniture Black Friday, Cyber Monday.
Yeah.
But here's the kicker. I hadn't closed on it yet.
Oh, God.
I was under
really
contract when I did that.
Yeah.
No, it wasn't brave. It was stupid. I did not know any better. It was literally the second house I'd ever bought, and I was just like, oh, yeah, of course, like, if you're under contract, you're pretty much closed, right? And no. And then they ended up voiding the contract.
Yeah.
Okay, so then at the beginning when you were approaching this, and this is a question we talk about a lot on cabin consultations because I feel like it's something that people don't always think about, but after your first one, a lot of people don't do it for their first one, but they realize after their first one, and that's project management. How you organize like all of the pieces as you're researching floors. Where do you store all the different prices? When you're doing interior design, Lauren, like where do you store all the items you're thinking about sourcing? So this is a very unsexy question, but I'm very curious how you all on each side, the build side and the design side, kind of project manage something of this scale.
I like to use just like a Google Sheets, and I separate it out, or Pinterest. I use Pinterest all the time. So Google Sheets is probably better, I think, if you're trying to compare pricing, and let's say you have scenario A, scenario B, or floors, options 1, 2, 3, because you can get a snapshot of maybe what each budget would be. And maybe there's things that you want to splurge on, whether it's like a bed, because you're not going to replace a bed frame as quickly as maybe you would a rug. So maybe there's pieces you want to spend more on and cut down somewhere else, but then if you put them also in a Pinterest page, I think you can easily get the links and get the visuals to them. So I kind of feel like I do a mix of both. And then, we kind of do the same thing with like materials, like plumbing or tiles, things like that. And build.com, I don't know if you've ever used them. It's owned by
haven't even heard of it.
Ferguson. So they have all plumbing and a lot of different lighting brands, but you can create different projects in that, and it has all the spec sheets, so it's great for like plumbing, appliances, things like that. We use that at work a lot too. But yeah, I think that's probably how a lot of people do it. But yeah, being organized is, and I know when we've worked together like that, having a spreadsheet and having all of your stuff in one place is like, you have to be organized to be successful with it, I think, or it's just chaos.
Yes.
So,
yeah. Let's take a step back. I dove right into the details because I think you all have so much insight on both the build and design side, and I know you already, but a lot of folks listening probably don't know you. So can you start by know you as humans? They very well might follow the Hillside House, but can you start by introducing yourselves as humans and what you each do in your day jobs, and then how long you've been together, where you met?
Well, I'm Lauren, and
I'm Cameron, and
we live in Charlotte, North Carolina, and our rental is in Boone, and it's about 2 hours and 15 minutes from our front door, so it's easy to get from home to there for a quick weekend trip. Cameron and I met about 11 years ago.
2013, I think.
Yeah, and I work in the interior design world. I've been, doing that for like 15 years now, and I think it's nice for me now to have some projects of my own outside of work. That it's kind of fun because it's like you have imaginary clients, which is kind of fun to do. because you don't have to really, you can do kind of whatever you want, but then you're
Right.
also doing it for these imaginary people. And Cameron and I met when we were neighbors.
Yeah, we lived in the same apartment building, so very organically, which is nice to meet that way. And
Unusual these days, I
yeah,
feel like.
and it doesn't matter, but that's just how we met. But it worked out really well, and our interests align, and things that we care about and values, and it worked out. And I'm from Greenville, South Carolina area originally, and I had just moved to Charlotte in 2012 for a job, and I'm an industrial product manager.
What does
So-
that mean for someone, say me, who doesn't really
Yeah,
know?
so I work in the conveyor industry, and I work for a company out of Michigan that builds conveyor components. And one of our divisions, I manage that division,
Okay.
basically.
Okay, so it doesn't really have anything to do with like the construction build stuff. Where did you learn that skill set that you felt so confident you could buy a
Oh,
house and
man.
just completely renovate it?
Well, yeah. So I don't know. I mean, my my family's pretty humble beginnings. So like when I was a kid, we did everything ourselves, and my dad and mom are like very DIY people. So I was helping out with like things like decks or stairways or patios from pretty young age, and we've done garages and a bunch of stuff, outbuildings. We've done a bunch of stuff, done some pretty serious renovations to houses. Nothing like the cabin was definitely like our biggest project that we've
Yeah.
ever done for sure. But my parents have some other properties in that area in South Carolina, like long-term rental type things. So we've done some renovating on that. So it's just everything I learned from like my dad, and he learned a lot of that from my grandfather, and so it's just kind of how we've always been. My dad works for General Electric. He's a maintenance head for General Electric. So some residential stuff is child's play to him, not
Yeah.
me, but to him. So. To have him, him and I have a great relationship. We're best friends, and to have him on my team is invaluable, especially when it comes to like some plumbing stuff and some electrical. It's all simple electrical stuff. We're not getting crazy, but just wiring and stuff. I learned a lot of
Right.
that from him. So
Right.
So,
So when you went to him and you're like, I think we're going to buy a cabin and we could really use your help. It's one thing for you to drive up every weekend and like work all week and then drive up and work on it. But to talk your dad into it, was that an immediate yes? Did you have to convince him of it? Or was he just like, hell yeah, this sounds fun?
I didn't have to convince him of it, really. He's pretty much a down for whatever type of guy. And my mom, was up a couple weekends a month as well, helping out, and her parents as well. So it was a real team effort. So when they bought their condo, it was nice that we got to kind of repay
we repaid the favor. But his dad likes to do things. Like,
Yeah,
I
we like
think he
projects.
likes, no one likes when there's a problem, but some people just really are good problem solvers and good at just having a task and just like tinkering with something, or they're just have very like minds that work well with like critical thinking, and I think his dad's really like that. So I think we all kind of brought something to the table that everyone had their areas of strength that maybe wasn't someone else's, and it's kind of everyone's work ethics complemented each other, and we couldn't have done it without them. It was a lot of work.
You get to hang out and work in the mountains and a nice view and everything, and we've always we've been drawn to the mountains. We grew up going, so
Yeah, so tell me, that's the next question. A lot of folks listening will not know of Boone. They might have heard of Upstate, the Blue Ridge Mountains, but don't know a lot about Boone. Can you describe that area to someone who's never been there?
Well, Boone itself is a college town. The whole area is peppered with like these little towns, like you're very well aware, but like you have, your Blowing Rock, which is like sort of a tourist area, very nice, but it's a great place. You have Banner Elk, which is like kind of more low-key. That's where your ski resorts are. You've got Beach Mountain. You've got, older, towns that are more still very local, like Newland. It's just...
And the Blue Ridge Parkway.
The Parkway runs right through there. Grandfather Mountain's right there. It's very much a mix of, local like mountain town, but it's becoming more of a tourism sort
Yeah.
of area, as you know, and the areas around Asheville are much the same way, but it's a little more low key than that area. Boone does not feel anything like Asheville, but it still is a city. You can still, you still have your chain restaurants and stuff, which is like what we don't like about Boone, but it's a nice place.
But there are a lot of great farms. There's a great farmers market.
Yeah.
There's local shops. There's a lot of local artists. So it has a really
totally
low-key, laid-back atmosphere, which is what we like about it, because there's great dining, there's wineries, breweries, but it doesn't feel like you're going to some city in the mountains.
Right.
It really is really quiet, and there's so many little towns you can go to, and even just get on the parkway and drive for 2 hours to go to any of these other cute little towns and the hiking.
Yeah.
So it's kind of what drew us to that area is we found a spot that we had a vision for, and then we were like, well, this is the perfect place. Has a great pace of life, so we were like, we will also be using this place for us as an escape, and this is like a place that we would want to come to.
And at the same time, it's the best of both worlds, right? Like you have your grocery stores and you have all your conveniences of like a larger place, but you can still kind of disappear in the woods.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. And the Lowe's that's closest to you has a bar in it, which is my favorite part about that grocery store.
I know. Yeah.
And all the grocery carts have little cup holders. When we
Yep.
first started working on the cabin, that was our favorite. We'd go into town.
Yeah.
We'd go to Lowe's to pick up groceries for the weekend, but we'd get a beer while we were shopping. What a treat.
Yeah, it makes it so much more enjoyable.
It makes you feel like, okay, I'm on mountain time
Yeah,
now. Like, what
now
can go
I'm
wrong?
on vacation. This is my vacation grocery shopping.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
right. That's right. And Asheville, when you go into Asheville, which a lot of people know of Asheville, it is a legit city. Like, there are some tall buildings, and, like, you are in a city. And yet, when you go to Boone, Banner Elk, or Blowing Rock, it's not. They're towns. They're, like, mountain towns. And it just feels different.
Yeah.
Which of the three is your favorite?
Well,
I think I like them all for different reasons. Like, there's a really great, there's a favorite restaurant of ours in Banner Elk, LP on Main, so we really like going there.
Reed's Cafe. Some of our favorite restaurants are actually up there.
Yeah.
Which is so funny because I never go to Banner Elk,
Yeah.
and we don't have a single restaurant in our guidebook in Banner Elk. So
You
I
guys
need to
go
try
to
them.
LP. It's
You gotta
so
I
put
know.
Reed's and LP on
And
there
Reed's,
for
yeah.
sure.
Okay.
Reed's, we actually catered our wedding up there, so now
Yeah,
every
it's
time we
phenomenal.
go, we're like, let's go to Reed's, and then
Yeah.
it's kind of fun to go.
Yeah.
To go. there.
But we also like, we like Asheville for what it is. We were just there last weekend, but we also like Black Mountain, Old Fort. Those areas are really nice.
Yeah.
And Asheville proper is nice. But we don't spend a ton of time in Boone, but there is a lot of great things in Boone. Blowing Rock is great when there's not so many people.
I know. I
It
know.
seems like when we head up to the cabin, we'll go out to eat a couple of times, but really we just like going up there for the quiet. We like going up and cooking at the cabin and enjoying the yard, going on hikes. So we are out and about, but not like a whole lot.
Yeah. Oh, and
Kinda
Linville.
just-
And Linville's really nice. And we're not that far from like the Linville Gorge and
Right.
that's a totally different wilderness area than like off the Parkway, right? So that's really
Yeah.
nice to have that. So there's just a lot of things. I mean, Rolling Mountain's 45 minutes away. There's just a lot of things in a pretty relatively small area to do. It's a very like tourism friendly area of the mountains, which is a good thing. And like we like that.
Yeah, and I always say when people are like in the early phases and maybe haven't already fallen in love with the location, but are like, we would like to build or buy a cabin, where should we do it? And like, sure, Air DNA is helpful to figure out like how much money people are making, but like, I honestly think that's missing the mark. I think Air DNA should be like a validation tool rather than a research tool. Find a place that you love, and if you already grew up going to the mountains and loved it, and you love all those things around it, then guests are going to love those things too. Problem solved. People will come.
Well, and I
great
think
point.
that it comes through, like, for us, we use our place pretty regularly, like probably every 5 to 6 weeks. So we have it set up so that we enjoy going there. And
That's
I think part of what makes a place successful is when you can tell that the hosts really love it.
Yes.
And they come there, and it's like a place that they take pride in and that they enjoy going to, and that's going to come across to the guests, because we've stayed places where we're like, this is an amazing like area, but this place just feels like
Impersonal.
it's not so, like really impersonal. And then we've stayed places where we're like, oh my God, they've put so much care and thought into it, and I think it creates the whole package. So finding a place that you're going to host, not just because I want to have an Airbnb and I want to make money and have an Airbnb, it's like, I think it's more rewarding when you reap the benefits.
They can tell when you're sharing a place.
totally.
You're sharing a place and an experience with them, something that you love.
Yeah.
I think they can tell. What are some ways that you do that at your cabin? And we'll get to the condo in a second. But what are some ways that you share that? Because I do think it's a delicate balance of like, I don't want guests to feel like I'm hovering over them the whole time they're there. I want it to feel like it's their space. But I also want, if they have any questions or anything that they're not sure about, that it's accessible to them. How do you navigate that and like really share with them and also let it be their experience?
When guests book with us, when we get their confirmation, we have like a digital guidebook that we send automatically. And we've been adding to it over the years of all of like our favorite stuff. So we'll have our favorites and then kind of the things that everybody knows about. And then the more and more we go up there, the more we find kind of off the beaten path hikes or little restaurants in small towns that maybe you got to drive to, or different coffee shops. So we send all that to them and kind of encourage them to, hey, take a look at this before you come. Because I'm a planner. Like when I'm going on a trip, I plan. I'm like, I'm looking at Google Maps and I'm like, okay, where are the restaurants? Where are the parks nearby? Cameron's always looking at hikes. So we're kind of trying to think, if I was traveling, what would I appreciate up front?
Yep.
And it seems to work really well. And we leave little like gift boxes, very small, for our guests of some local favorite things. We kind of rotate out what we put in them. And we're fortunate to have a lot of repeat guests, and we're always trying to add small little upgrades as through the years.
Yeah.
And I think when they come back and they see, oh, hey, because our cabin's not inexpensive, but it's not like top tier pricing. I think it's nice for people to come back and see, oh, they've made improvements on this.
Yeah.
Oh, this has been upgraded. And it's just like, it's continuing to evolve. And I think that they feel that when they
It really helps just, I know it's not always possible, but it helps spending time there yourself. Like we go once a month, basically, maybe 5 weeks, but we're up there all the time, and we're there, we live there, like it's our home, and we just treat it like that. So we, it's obviously nice, but it's kind of, we don't have family pics on the wall, but like, it's personal, like from the games, the books, the art, the bedding, everything, from like the mattresses, or like they're not, cheap rental mattress, like things like this. It's just, I think it's just a combination of everything. The kitchen drawers have everything you need as if someone lived there, So it's just all that stuff, and like what Lauren mentioned, it's just everything adds up to create, you kind of feel a little bit, I think, like you're feeling in someone's home. Yeah. Like you're in someone's home. And I've stayed in we've all stayed in Airbnbs like that, and it's always appreciated. Than something
you can tell, I feel like, if they come stay there versus, I think, I could be wrong, but I think it's really hard to replicate that experience on a mass scale, even beyond like 2 or 3. Even as we move to 3, I think that we don't do as good. Like, we've thought about selling Boone. Not that I don't love it, but it's just we go to Maine so much now that it's really hard to keep that up. Yeah. And I will say, when we talk about selling Boone, we're like, well, we can always just rent Lauren and Cam's and pretend like it's ours, like once every couple of months. Yeah. Except we don't have to do any work. Yeah.
It is hard, unless that's like your sole job, because it does take a lot of time to go and do like the quality control check, like check and see if this is there. Does this need to be replaced? So like, I mean, we'll go up for a weekend, and then, I mean, there's always like a solid 6 hours of just like stuff to do.
Because you can
whether
tell little stuff that you
Yeah.
may know you need to do when you go, or you just notice it once you're there.
Yeah, there's always something to do.
I will say finding a good cleaner can make a difference because we don't go up to Boone as much anymore, and we found a new cleaner who like takes so much pride in it and will just be like, you need a new oven mitts, I pick some up, here's the receipt for them. And I just kind of give her free will to like spend, you know, within reason,
Right.
but like you're there all the time, you
Yeah.
know, and that makes it so that guests probably don't notice that we're not there as much, but it's really hard, I think,
But
to do
somebody
what you're
has-
doing.
Yeah, someone has to be looking at the oven mitts.
Yes,
or like
exactly.
the lampshades. Like we've
Yes.
stayed places where like the lampshades are broken or lamps aren't working, and it's just like, okay, I guess your cleaner's not turning the lamp on when they're
Yeah.
cleaning, or you're obviously never here because you would notice this if you pulled a pan out of the oven because you can't because the hot pad doesn't.
Yeah.
It's hot. On your
Right.
hand, so.
Right, if you're not there, you just don't notice those things, or you need a really good cleaner. I think you can do it that way too. But when I see people, when I see people who've managed to scale to like lots of properties, I always wonder like, how are you doing that and maintaining
what's
the same?
secret? I'm sure there are people who, I think it's having a good team and being organized, and maybe there's like a system in place of like,
Yeah,
if you can create one, and then maybe the others there's like a formula to it.
yeah,
So maybe the design is different, but maybe some of your like processes are the same. Like for us, we're only up every 5 weeks or so, but every time we go, we stock it with the things the cleaners leave out. And so hopefully our guests think that we are there every time, leaving these notes for them, leaving these gifts for them. Like, I think that's the goal, is to make it
personal.
feel like you were there and you set it up. And if you have the right team to help you and you are organized and you can put the things in place, then I think that's what sets it apart for your guests to have the experience.
Because I think that's what makes Airbnbs or short-term rentals different from staying at a hotel is that, and maybe Airbnb in particular, because I don't know that every brand talks about it in the same way, but it feels like when they started, that was the idea behind it, is like individuals sharing places that they loved with other people. And so if you don't have that personal element, then I don't know. I think it's missing like a core part of why I would choose an Airbnb versus a hotel or someplace else.
I think they still view it that way, and they incentivize places like yours and ours. You know, when you go and search Airbnbs in a city or wherever, those are the first places that show up, you know?
Yeah. And I as a traveler, that's what I like about it too. And when I stay someplace like the place we stayed in Auckland, it was lovely, but there wasn't a guest book at all. And I almost felt needy asking for one, but I was kind of like, you guys live in Auckland. Like, I'm across the globe. I don't know where to eat here, and I don't want to get stuck at a chain restaurant and not know any better. Like, where should I go? Yeah. But I do think there's different cabins in my mind. When you have cabin owners and cabins, you're expecting a bit of a different experience. When I stay in a city, I honestly mostly book hotels in cities now for a couple reasons. But one of them is just like Airbnbs in cities just have a different feel to them. It's rare to find one with a personal element.
Yeah. You can, I mean, they're out there, but you're totally right.
Yeah,
or
it's harder
if
to
you're
find.
only going to stay somewhere for like one night.
Well, yeah.
Like, there's some great Airbnbs for one night, but like, if I'm only going to stay one night, I want to make sure I have coffee, shampoo, and the stuff I probably forgot, because I don't want to go out and buy it for one night.
That's right.
And
hotels, you get that.
You get all that. So
you don't have to worry about it.
And there are some really cool boutique hotels.
Yeah. There's a lot of competition in the hotel industry. So
Yeah, and I do think they've upped their game a little bit since Airbnb, too. They've had to. I think it's good for both of us, honestly. I think there's a place for hotels and a place for Airbnbs.
Absolutely.
And every time I stay at a hotel, I'm reminded of stuff that they do that I'm like, okay, this feels really good as a traveler. How do I incorporate this into what we're doing there so that we can have both?
Yeah.
Okay, so how long did it take once you launched the Hillside House? You spent 11 months renovating it. Then you launched it. You said it was about a year before, Cam, your parents were like, maybe we should do this too. How did that conversation come about? And were you all excited about doing another project with them right afterwards?
Yeah, totally. So those condos, like when we looked at that condo that I mentioned, 2 years before my parents eventually bought a place there, we want to talk about views. Like it just faces, like when you're on top of Grandfather Mountain, you can really only see a little bit of infrastructure, and it's those condos. And it's just an incredible view, right? Just like bird's eye view of the mountain, of the valley. So we loved it. We were like, if we could afford to buy 2 places right now, we would buy this place and the cabin, right?
Yeah.
Obviously.
So we had it on like.
So it was on our radar, and it's right up the street. I mean, it's 0.2 miles away, if that.
I didn't realize it was that close.
Yeah.
It's like a 4-minute walk.
We're familiar with
that's
it,
amazing.
and so one popped up on the market. And my mom is like a real estate hawk. She's just always like.
She's always scrolling Zillow. Like this past weekend, she had like 4 houses to show us on Zillow.
So she's like aware. She actually she found our house that we live in here in Charlotte.
Yeah.
Actually.
But
and she's like, you need to check this out.
Yeah, I think I got an alert for like our zip code up there, and I was like, oh my god, look at this condo, and then we sent it to his parents, and then I think 2 days later they were up there looking at it, and it was for sale by owner. So they were selling it pretty inexpensively.
It was right before. I mean, not to get too much into this, but it was like right before sort of the bubble sort of like blew up there. I mean, months prior, and so it really lucked out, and it was more cosmetic with that one. Obviously, I mean, there were some pretty big things. I mean, the kitchen. We totally gutted the kitchen, gutted the bathroom, pretty much. So there were some big things, but it was certainly not to the level. I would say we were on average up there 3 weekends a month, where like Hillside House, it was crazy. I mean, we were up there every single weekend.
But it was still a lot of work.
A lot of work.
Yeah.
I think we were all like, we took so much time out of our personal lives when we did the cabin. Like, we really honestly were never home for a single weekend. And I think all of us were like, okay, we have to do this project, but we have to, like, to avoid burnout, we have to also have time for ourselves, for our friends, for our homes, for our other family. So we just tried to, like, give ourselves a little bit more flexibility.
Yeah. So you did that project, and then how long after that, this is the third one that I really want to talk about because we're dreaming about doing a van build, but then you started tackling a van build. Was that alongside the profile place, which was the second one, or did you start it after that one?
I bought it when we were still working on the profile place. And this wasn't on purpose, but it really worked out because we use it as a cargo van for a while.
That does make a lot of sense though, because a van could be used to like lug stuff up if you're buying it in Charlotte and need to take stuff up to the cabin. So not even, you built it out later, but even just using it as a way to haul stuff up. Because if you're doing your own reno without a pickup truck or without a van, that's like nearly impossible. How do you get the stuff you need?
So I used to drive like a 20-year-old Chevy truck, right? And that's been our like work truck for like 10 years now. And we put a Hillside House sticker on it and a profile place sticker on it because it's like we call it like the MVP of all of it because we couldn't. Everyone that's doing anything like this needs an old truck. So we had the van. So I bought the van because I've always been interested. Like, I don't know, I don't want to get too much into it, but like nomadic lifestyles and just like being out there. And we're friends, and you know how I am, and so. But
I feel like a lot of people listening, I feel like people who are drawn to cabin culture have a little bit of that bug too.
Yeah. So it's like I've been going like backpacking and camping even by myself since I was like a teenager, and I remember like even during COVID, I was furloughed for a week. Like we all found out we were gonna be furloughed at our company, right? And it's like that day I started planning a solo trip to Colorado. So it's like I'm just a big proponent of that. And then so, as you know, like van life or just van culture has really kind of blown up, especially it's been big on the West Coast for a while, but it's really kind of became a mainstream thing in the past decade. And I've always been fascinated with it. And I was like, I would love to do it in general, and it could probably be like a money-making venture. Yeah.
So, were you thinking at that point that you could make them and then sell them, or make them and then rent them in the same way that you would a cabin?
Like either or, kind of both. So just kind of wanted to figure it out, but I knew I wanted a high roof van, and I didn't want to buy something super old, but I couldn't afford like, a brand new Sprinter or a brand new Transit. So I bought it was used, but like it was a year old, like 25,000 miles. It's a Ford Transit high roof.
Okay, this is the dream. We're looking for vans right now, and that's literally what we're looking for.
Yeah.
Can I ask how much you found it for?
Yeah, so it was 45, which is
Okay.
a pretty good deal.
Yeah.
And it was pretty new.
For
It-
25,000 miles,
It
that's,
was a
I
year
feel like,
old.
yeah.
I mean, it was like, you know, it had been used as like a cargo van. So, I mean, it's like has some cosmetic things. It's not
Yeah.
perfect even after a year old, but like whatever. And yeah, so I drove all the way to Athens, Georgia to buy it. And because you have to kind of be willing to drive if you're looking.
Yeah.
They're few and far between, and you know,
Yes.
just like the delivery, like the rise of like delivery, I mean, like Amazon. I mean, there's a bit of a shortage, especially with like high roof vans. And Fords are nice because you've probably done your research, Janice, but like, you know, they're easier to work on. There's more
Yep.
people to work on them than like
Yes.
Sprinters or whatever.
That's the biggest reason that we're not looking at Mercedes, because we've heard if you break
Yeah.
down somewhere, you have to find the nearest Mercedes dealer or
hard.
mechanic. It's
Yeah,
so
it's
hard.
And if you're on like a road trip to enjoy like national parks and stuff, you're not near
Right.
Mercedes dealerships. So
Yeah,
that
it's
would
a
be
Ford.
that would be pretty tough.
Yeah, it's a Ford 250 motor. They make a ton of those. Ford, you know, it's fine. You know, it's reliable. So got that, and then finished up the profile place, and you know, the van, you know, all these positive things that I can say about my dad and I. But when we walked into the van for the first time, we were like, where do we even start with this, right? Because it's like it's not even level,
Yeah.
right? Like
Interesting. It's just
Yeah.
a totally different beast.
it's not level. There's really no straight lines. Like you have to just create all of it. And so like, where do we even start? So I mean, I could talk forever about it, but like I did the subfloor, did the floor by myself, insulated it, soundproofed the walls, and then that's when my dad and I got started on it in earnest. And yeah, it's been it was a project for sure.
Yeah.
Totally new learning curve.
Was it harder or easier than the Hillside House?
Way harder. Way harder.
Really?
You'd
Because
think
it's so much
being-
smaller.
Yeah, you'd think being smaller, but like, well, it moves. It's just on wheels, so that's like you have to think about weight, which
Yeah.
And vibrations.
and things rattling. Even when we were done with the van, and then it was like my time to like stock it with the stuff.
And
You're
decorate,
like,
yeah.
Yeah.
okay, how are we going to secure this? How are we going to do this? But you would think that being smaller, it would be easier, but it's just so many systems and things that all...
It's a lot that has to tie together, and it really benefited. I would say I owned the van for about a year before I even really did anything to it.
Well, you had a lot of other projects going on too.
Yeah, but honestly, that kind of benefited me because I was able to really think about it, and you know, I would follow like Instagram accounts, and I would take elements of like, okay, I like this layout or this layout, and I would just kind of take elements of everything that I liked, and that just kind of comes organically over time. So then I finally had my like, this is the layout, this is exactly what we're gonna do. Maybe not everything like dimensionally exact,
Yeah.
but like this is what we're gonna do, and yeah, and it just adds up. And then again, like without my dad, we built the whole electrical system ourselves, built the cabinet,
Wow.
everything. So we've got 2,000 watts of we have 2,000 watt, two 1,000 watt batteries. So, solar coming in. We got 2 solar panels and alternator charger, solar charger, what do you call it? Like just shore power, campground hookup power.
See, I know what none of this means, but
a
I'm
lot
definitely
of
going to have Sean
redundant-
ask you these questions.
A little bit of redundancy with power.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah. Anyway, plumbing was a little bit difficult in some ways, and the biggest thing is just like we put some windows in, right? And that was a scary thing. Like one of the first thing we did was
Drill into the side of it.
Yeah.
drilling,
right? Yeah.
like cut a big hole, a big hole into the top, and we cut several holes. We did windows on both sides. But the first thing we did for the fan, which you have to have an exhaust fan or it just gets too hot, and we cut, and I was like, I can't believe I have this, $45,000 is a lot of money, and
Yes.
I can't believe I'm like cutting a hole in this thing.
Step 1, go ahead and cut a hole.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was scary.
I was
I don't
using a
think
tool
I
I'd never
could
used.
watch.
Like I've never done
Yeah.
like sheet metal work, so I'm like cutting, and I'm like, I can't believe this is crazy stuff. This is really crazy stuff. But it just came. It took a lot of time. We didn't work on it every weekend. I would say probably 2 weekends a month. Sometimes 3 weeks would go by before we would work on it, and we pretty much did all the work at my parents' house, just because,
they have a bigger driveway.
They have a big driveway, and my dad's helping me out, so it's like, but worst I could, the best I can do is come to him. So
yeah.
But I could go on about the van forever because there's so much, but just aligning the walls, and it's just, you have a house and you have like, okay, well, I need to put a new window in this house. Well, that's a hard thing to do, but at least you have a space for a window, and like,
right, you already removed the old window and you're like, okay,
you
there's
have
a
to build
hole.
all of it. And again, it's nothing's flat. Everything's like specific cuts and a lot of trial and error, and I got really good with the jigsaw after that project. So
yeah. So, kind of cool that you and your dad have a lot of skills already to then tackle a project that requires you to stretch yourself a little bit and leave learning how to use new tools. I feel like it would take a unique project for you two to get to do that.
Absolutely. Like the cabin, the profile place were hard, but not necessarily mentally difficult, where the van was like, we would go out on a Saturday morning and not even do any work until 1 p.m. because we were just sitting there thinking about, planning it, basically.
Yeah,
how are we going to do this?
Laying out where the things are going.
Yeah, laying things out.
Being like, okay, next week we have to do this. So to do that, we have to do this. And if that's going to happen, then this has to happen. So there was a lot of like...
Yeah, and I would say for anyone out there, like, considering it and doing it themselves, I think it's possible. I think anyone can figure it out. It's, luckily in 2024, there's anything that you can do in life, there are people that have done it before, and it's probably on YouTube, right?
Yeah.
So, you can figure things out, and you can do it. However, it's just gets so much more expensive because all these, like, systems are relatively specific. So, like, everything just it really, really adds up. Like, the trips to Lowe's aren't very expensive, but just all the specialty stuff just really adds up more than you would think.
And then, so was it worth it at the end of it? Are you all renting it, or what are you doing with it now?
We're not renting it because it's like we don't really trust anyone.
I think down the road we will, but now we're like, we put all this time into it, and we at least are going to use it just ourselves for a few years. We've taken it on a bunch of weekend trips. We're taking it on a almost 2.5 week trip out to Utah this summer, at the end of the summer. So it's a big voyage. So we just want to get the most out of it that we can when it's fresh and new and in great shape before we just start giving it to other people. I think the scariest thing is that it's a moving vehicle, and whether or not you trust the person who's renting it, there's other people on the road.
That's right.
And we just are like, let's just enjoy it while we can for a while, and then
it's a whole different beast renting a van. It feels like it to me.
Yeah, I know there's a lot of people who rent them, who have their vans and they rent them. So I think we just kind of want to enjoy it while we can, and then consider doing it. But we never thought that we were gonna not rent it. So surprised us.
It was a bit of a case study for us, and we learned a lot. We were like, can we even do this? And it's, hopefully you'll see it one day, and it looks beautiful and it looks awesome, but
we'll send you some photos.
But there are things
please do.
There are things that I would have done differently just to make it more user friendly. It is user friendly, but there's how our cabins are. Like you might have like a little sign here, some notes.
They're
here.
quirky.
Yeah, you need to know things, and the van has little things like that, right? And it's just hard to kind of convey all that. And again, I just wouldn't really trust anybody. Now that I know that I can do it, and now that I feel like we could perfect, it pretty much is perfect, honestly. If I'm being honest, I think we did a pretty perfect job, and we took our time.
I love that for you.
But if I did another one, there would be things that I would do differently just to make it where anyone could just go inside, figure everything out immediately. And make it work and have a nice vacation. So maybe
maybe in the future you'll do another one.
Maybe in the future, I think maybe the pathway would be to sell them.
Yeah.
Or do systems.
Now that if you're making perfect ones, maybe we don't need to do one after
Like,
all. Maybe we'll just buy one of yours.
There are people that do like subsystems, like electrical subsystems and plumbing, and like we could do, I don't know. It's kind of.
That's what Sean has been looking at. It's not doing it all from scratch, but buying kind of that system and then doing the assembly of it. But I feel like the way that you've done the van is the same way that you did the cabin and your parents' place, which is like find a place that you love, take your time doing it, really enjoy it yourself, and then that ultimately makes you a better host. Same thing with a van, taking it on a 2-week trip. You get to learn all that stuff and figure out how do I help someone else make the most out of this.
Yeah. I think that's the thing is the van has some things where it's like, if this is happening, then it's probably A or B. And if D is happening, then it might be C or D. Like, there's just little things that we probably need to know how to perfect, how to communicate to someone using it. But it would be interesting to have one where all of those systems are in place, and then you're coming in and you're just doing like the stuff to make it more unique and more personal with like the cabinet colors, the textiles, the little like van accessory things. Would probably be much more expensive, but probably be much more renter friendly.
Yeah. So where could folks find, tell us where we can find you in general on like Instagram, etc. But the van stuff, do you share that on the Hillside House, or where could people find info if they wanted to follow that or think about it in the future? Do you have a place where that's being shared?
We have an Instagram that's kind of like under development, but we don't really
We probably should.
What is it? Do you want to share it with the people?
What is it?
Well, it doesn't. We need to put
There's
pictures
honestly
on
nothing. So we are the Hillside House.
Yeah, it's
and our condo. Well, Cameron's parents' condo. His mom and I run that one together. Is the profile place, and then the van, which we don't really have anything on, but we should just, even if it's just a personal page about our van adventures.
Yeah,
I think it's Van Side.
Yeah, it's Van Side NC is the Instagram, and I have
go follow right now.
We have a website called
there's nothing on
thevanside.com. But
when we were gonna run it,
so because it's like the beginning of a business idea, so it feels very half.
Well, that's okay, folks. Know it's at the beginning.
Yeah, it's hard to do all the things at one time.
And again, like the plan was just like to start to generate revenue immediately, and now it's kind of like we're enjoying it, and we'll see where it goes from here.
Man, that's the place to start. I genuinely feel like cabin culture should be first and foremost about us, and like, because people who are drawn to it love cabins, and that's why we do it. And then it's real easy, as I've learned, to get swept up in the business side of it and then lose that personal love that brought you into it in the first place. Oh my gosh, we only have 1 minute left. Can you tell me what makes a cabin a cabin? I don't want to miss this very important question, especially because I'm curious, do you think a van can be a cabin as well?
Yeah,
ours is pretty cabin-y inside.
Pretty cute.
Yeah.
I think what makes a cabin is how you feel when you go there. For me, it's a place to like recharge, reset, just enjoy myself and the people that I'm with, and just kind of unplug for a while. So we can achieve that at the cabin itself, or you can go in a van and go camping and have that same feeling. To me, it's more of a feeling than it is a specific like type of structure.
It's
a space that evokes that.
Yeah,
connecting with the nature around you too. Kind of
and the van almost seems to do that. Like you can connect to different types of nature, which is really fun.
Yeah.
It's really, really nice. Like, we went to the parkway and, like, watched the sunrise and just backed in. And it's just like, you can take your cabin anywhere with the van. And it's going to be in the desert soon enough. And it'll be in the mountains this weekend, actually. So, it's a really, it gives you a lot of freedom, for sure. Just be aware that you'll get 16 miles a gallon.
What a way to finish, Cam. I appreciate that. Guys, it was so good to talk to you. Thanks for joining me.
Yeah, it was
good
fun.
To see you.
Good to chat.
Thanks for having us on.
Thanks so much for joining us, and if you liked what you heard, feel free to leave us a 5-star rating on Spotify or share some of your favorite parts over on Apple Podcast. If you have feedback or suggestions for the future, you can also find me on Instagram at Cozy Rock Cabin. Looking forward to next week.